It is early morning. A pale mist hangs over the water. Flat-bottomed boats drift toward the Ile de la Cité, heavy with grain from upstream villages. Boatmen are ready to unload sacks of flour onto their shoulders. Above you, rising slowly but unmistakably, are the towers of Notre Dame. The cathedral is not yet complete, but its scale is already astonishing. Stone arches reach higher than any house nearby. Scaffolding clings to the walls. Masons chip at limestone blocks, their rhythmic hammering echoing across the water. Now compare this to the same riverbank today. Cars move across wide bridges. Stone embankments contain the Seine. Tourists photograph a finished cathedral that has endured 8 centuries of change. But in 1200, Paris is not yet the polished capital of postcards. It is muddy, crowded, loud, ambitious, and growing at extraordinary speed. Around the year 1200, Paris is becoming the fastest-growing major city in Northern Europe. To understand why, we need to step inside it.
The year is approximately 1200. The king is Philip II, known to history as Philip Augustus. He has ruled since 1880, and during his reign, the French monarchy is consolidating real power. For generations, the Capetian kings controlled only a relatively small domain around Paris, while powerful nobles, especially the kings of England who also held vast French territories, rivaled them. But Philip has systematically expanded royal authority. Through warfare, diplomacy, and strategic marriages, he has weakened his enemies and strengthened the crown. Paris benefits directly from this transformation. Unlike many medieval cities dominated by merchant oligarchies or bishops, Paris is deeply tied to the monarchy. The king resides here frequently. Royal officials administer justice here. Taxes and legal disputes flow toward this urban center. When the king is present, nobles follow. When nobles arrive, they bring servants, horses, guards, and demand for goods. Royal courts attract clerks, scribes, and legal experts. Political gravity creates urban momentum. By 1200, Paris is not simply a large town. It is becoming the administrative heart of France.
To visualize Paris in 1200, divide it into 3 zones. At the center lies the Ile de la Cité. This island is compact but crucial. It contains the royal palace, the Cathedral of Notre Dame, and other ecclesiastical buildings. Stone construction dominates here more than elsewhere, signaling authority and permanence. To the north of the Seine is the right bank. This is the commercial engine. Markets crowd the streets near Les Halles. Merchants sell grain, fish, cloth, spices, and everyday goods. The right bank is densely populated and economically active. To the south is the left bank. In 1200, this area is less commercially intense, but intellectually transformative. It is here that masters teach students in theology, philosophy, and law. What will soon be known formally as the University of Paris is taking shape. The entire urban area is enclosed by walls, or increasingly so. Philip Augustus has begun constructing a massive stone wall around both banks of the city. Completed in the early 12th century, it defines Paris physically and symbolically as a fortified capital. Modern Paris extends far beyond these medieval boundaries. How many people lived here? Estimating medieval populations is difficult. There are no reliable censuses in 1200. But most historians agree that Paris likely had between 50,000 and 80,000 inhabitants at the turn of the 13th century, possibly approaching or exceeding 100,000 by mid-century. That makes it one of the largest cities in Europe outside Italy and Byzantium. For comparison, London around 1200 may have had 20,000 to 30,000 inhabitants. Many German cities were smaller still. Even Rome, though symbolically powerful, had declined dramatically from its ancient heights and may have had fewer residents than Paris at this time. In Northern Europe, Paris is exceptional. Its growth is driven by three forces: royal power, economic trade, and intellectual prestige. Streets and housing. Step off the riverbank and into the streets. The roads are narrow, often no more than a few meters wide. Some are paved with uneven stones, but many are muddy tracks. There are no standardized street names yet. People navigate by landmarks: a church, a market stall, a well. Houses are typically timber-framed with plaster filling between wooden beams. Upper floors extend slightly over the street, supported by beams. In some areas, opposing houses nearly touch overhead. Ground floors often serve as shops or workshops. A baker sells bread from a wooden counter. A cobbler repairs shoes in the doorway of his home. A butcher displays cuts of meat on hooks. Above, families live in cramped quarters. A single room might contain a hearth for cooking, a table, benches, chests for storage, and straw mattresses for sleeping. Stone construction is reserved for important structures: churches, monasteries, bridges, parts of the royal palace. Fire is a constant threat. Open hearths, candles, and wooden buildings create a dangerous combination. Major fires periodically sweep through districts, destroying homes and workshops. Compared to modern Paris with its stone facades and regulated building codes, medieval Paris feels fragile and combustible. Food supply is central to urban survival. Paris depends heavily on grain from surrounding regions. The Seine and its tributaries provide transportation routes. Grain arrives by boat and cart, entering city markets where it is milled and baked into bread. Bread is the staple of daily life. The quality varies according to wealth. White wheat bread is preferred but expensive. Darker bread made from rye or mixed grains is common among the poor. Pottage, a stew of grains and vegetables, is eaten daily. Cabbage, leeks, onions, beans, and peas form the base. Meat is added when affordable. Pork is common, beef less so. Fish is widely consumed, especially on the numerous religious fast days when meat is forbidden. Wine is safer than untreated water and widely consumed by adults. Beer exists but is less central than in northern regions like England or the German lands. Food scarcity is a recurring threat. If harvests fail due to bad weather, grain prices rise sharply. Urban populations dependent on rural supply are vulnerable to famine. In 1200, Paris is growing so quickly that ensuring stable food distribution becomes a serious administrative challenge. The river is essential for transport, trade, washing, and waste disposal. But it is also contaminated. Some houses have cesspits. Others dispose of waste into the street or directly into the river. Rain washes refuse downhill. The smell, especially in warm months, is intense. There is no centralized sewage system. Disease is common, though not always catastrophic. The Great Plague of the Black Death will not strike until the mid-14th century. But everyday illnesses, dysentery, fevers, infections, are part of life. And yet, for its time, Paris is not uniquely unsanitary. Conditions are typical of medieval urban centers. The difference between then and now is scale and technology. Modern Paris manages waste through complex infrastructure. Medieval Paris relies on gravity, rivers, and human labor. Construction began in 1163 under Bishop Maurice de Sully. By 1200, the choir and much of the nave are complete. The western facade and towers are rising. The Gothic style, with its pointed arches, ribbed vaults, and flying buttresses, allows unprecedented height and light. Stained glass windows filter colored sunlight into the interior. The cathedral is not merely religious architecture, it is a political statement. It declares that Paris is a city of wealth, organization, and ambition. Stone must be quarried, transported, shaped, and assembled. Skilled laborers must be paid. Funds must be raised. Every block of limestone represents coordination across the region. Compared to many earlier Romanesque churches, Notre Dame is taller, lighter, and structurally innovative. It signals confidence, and it anchors the city's skyline, just as it does today. The University of Paris. Perhaps the most transformative development around 1200 is the rise of the University of Paris. For decades, masters had been teaching in cathedral schools. By the late 12th century, Paris had gained a reputation as a leading center of theology and philosophy. Students come from across Europe. They speak Latin in lectures and debates. They rent rooms from local residents. They attend disputations, formalized intellectual arguments on questions of faith and reason. The university is not yet a single centralized campus. It is a corporation of masters and students, recognized by ecclesiastical and royal authorities. It develops privileges, including some legal protections for scholars. This concentration of intellectual life gives Paris enormous cultural influence. In modern terms, imagine a city where one of the world's most prestigious universities sits within walking distance of the royal palace. That is Paris in 1200. Markets and guilds. The economic life of Paris is structured increasingly by guilds. Craftsmen organize by trade. Bakers, butchers, goldsmiths, tanners, and others regulate entry into their profession, maintain standards, and control pricing. Markets operate regularly. Les Halles on the right bank becomes a central marketplace. Goods flow into Paris not only from nearby villages, but from distant regions. Cloth from Flanders, wine from Burgundy, spices from the Mediterranean, carried through complex trade networks. Paris is not a maritime power like Venice, but through the Seine and overland routes, it participates in long-distance exchange. The growth of trade supports population expansion. More people can survive in the city because more goods flow through it. Defense and the city wall. Rapid growth demands security. Philip Augustus orders the construction of a massive defensive wall around Paris in the 1190s. It stretches along both banks of the Seine, enclosing expanding neighborhoods. The wall includes towers and gates. It is designed to protect against external threats, particularly from rival lords and foreign powers. But it also defines the city's boundaries. Modern Paris long ago outgrew its medieval walls, but in 1200 the wall marks a psychological frontier. Inside is the protected urban core. Outside are fields, villages, and monasteries. The construction of such a wall reflects royal confidence and administrative capacity. Few cities can mobilize the resources required for such infrastructure. Social hierarchy. Paris in 1200 is not socially equal. At the top are the king and high nobility. Below them are bishops and abbots. Wealthy merchants and master craftsmen hold economic power. Below them are journeymen, apprentices, servants, laborers, and the urban poor. Inequality is visible in housing quality, diet, and clothing. Noble women wear fine fabrics, wool dyed in bright colors, sometimes trimmed with fur. Poor laborers wear rough, undyed wool. Women's roles vary by class. Noble women manage households and estates. Urban women often assist in family businesses. Some work independently as vendors or craftswomen. Slavery, as practiced in the Roman Empire, no longer exists in the same form, but servitude and dependency remain common. Medieval Paris is dynamic but stratified. Today, Paris is known for its wide boulevards, uniform facades, and urban planning largely shaped by Baron Haussmann in the 19th century. In 1200, none of that exists. The city is organic, irregular, and compact. It smells of animals, smoke, and refuse. It sounds like hammering, bells, merchants shouting. But certain continuities are striking. The Seine still defines the city's shape. The Ile de la Cité remains central. Notre Dame, though altered and restored over centuries, still dominates its island. The university tradition persists. The idea of Paris as an intellectual capital began in this period. And politically, Paris continues to be France's center of power. The long-term consequences. The growth of Paris around 1200 lays foundations that will shape European history. A stronger monarchy centralized in Paris eventually enables France to emerge as one of Europe's most powerful states. The University of Paris influences theology, philosophy, and education across Christendom. Urban density fosters economic specialization and innovation, yet growth also brings vulnerability. In the 14th century, famine and plague will reduce the population dramatically. The 100 Years' War will bring instability. Later, religious conflicts will shake the city. But Paris will not disappear. Unlike some cities that rose and fell with a single dynasty or trade route, Paris's combination of political, economic, and intellectual gravity gives it resilience. In 1200, Paris is not yet the city of revolutions, cafes, and grand avenues. It is a medieval capital under construction. Stone by stone, wall by wall, lecture by lecture, it is defining its identity. It is growing faster than its infrastructure can comfortably manage. It is crowded and imperfect, but it is confident. If you stand in modern Paris today, along the Seine, beneath the towers of Notre Dame, you are standing in a city whose transformation accelerated around the year 1200. From muddy streets and timber houses emerged a capital. From cathedral schools emerged a university that shaped Europe. From a regional royal seat emerged the heart of a kingdom. Paris in 1200 is not simply an earlier version of modern Paris. It is the moment when Paris became unmistakably central, politically, intellectually, and culturally. And in that sense, the fastest-growing city of medieval Northern Europe was already becoming something much larger, a city whose influence would extend far beyond its walls across centuries to the present day.